Hi, this is Mike making my video. Uh, Today's 4/18/2025 and it's 3 o'clock a.m. Uh, so anyway, I'm making this video. Um, I don't really have a whole lot to say, but I'm really more or less just talking about the nature of reality and the emergent state of reality. So anyway, yeah, we're just more or less a pile of dirt that are animated, food that basically can think and reason. We ate what was dead and they gave life to it and it became alive, and that's really what we are. Uh, but then you can go one step further and you can say we're just a, a mass of tetrahedrons that are animated and can think and reason. We have a bunch of impressions, and we add to that, and we compare that blueprint, that to what we see, and we make sense of this world, and we give things a title, label, and we make those things real. So you know, if you really think about it, it's absurd, that our existence. We think we reason, but we're still a pile of flesh. Uh, but then again, we're light. That's really what we are. And the light establishes itself and makes us real. We were a tiny blob of sperm, in an egg, and microscopic, and cells divided and organized, and became real, and that's really what we are. And you go one step further and just say we're light, that's animated and it's vibrating at a slower rate. So anyway, we piss, we shit, and we make errors. It's human to error. And you think about all the colossal things that were built, and they're just a pile of shit nowadays. And it's like you think about that, and you think about the colossal mistakes that society has made. Uh, if you think about all that, and you think about all the errors in human judgment, and how imperfect we are in a lot of ways. But then again, in comparison to AI, I mean, we're very, very far behind as far as that goes, as far as intelligence go. But then again, what is knowledge? What is the importance about being super smart? Like saying that I'm the smartest one here, and I'm the strongest one here, I'm the fastest one here. In the end of the day, uh, there is no such thing as time and chance happens to us all, and sometimes the evil get rich and the rich get evil, and sometimes the good people, the upright people, sometimes they're poor, sometimes the evil ones are rich and whatnot. So, I mean, we've made a lot of strides. We've gotten as far as some of the technology we've created, and yeah, it's probably the next generation of evolution is probably CGI. You know, but then again, if you really realize it, you wake up from the dream, you find out that everything is a dream. It's all computer generated. Your mind is the video console, and you got the goggles on, and you're just playing an interactive video game. In the grand scheme of things, everything isn't fluid or isn't fixed. It's fluid, and walls disappear, ceilings disappear. You can talk to people on the other side of a glass mirror, and there's just all kinds of different ways of looking at it. Things start on fire, things disappear, things freeze, earthquakes. Uh, tsunamis and this and that, and it's all created by people in a lot of ways. It's not always Mother Nature. So, with that being said, the pride of life, the desire of the flesh, and the desire of the eyes. It's all really there's that, and then those types of things are the things that people look after and they chase after. But when you really break it down, you find out that it's meaningless. It's absurd. It's meaningless. It's vanity. It's everything that you see, and it's on the surface. So you're chasing after these things that eventually are going to disappear. Your wealth will disappear. Your job status will disappear. Uh, your relationships, your friendships, your family will disappear. Uh, uh, you know, the building that you live in will crumble, and So anyway, you point your finger and you find out that there's nobody there to listen to you. So anyway, that's really ultimately what it's all about. You find out that everything's more or less a mirage. It's an illusion. It's a divine comedy. It's basically a joke, and I mean, you make meaning out of what you do have, and you make sense out of what you do have, but ultimately there really is, just just an illusion. And so why put so much effort into it? Why climb the hill, and why strive to be number one? Why be the best and fastest and the strongest? Even those people die. You've seen people like that, and they die in their 30s, uh, at the prime of life. And so anyway, it's just the whole thing is you just let's say you got small hobbies and you got a handful of things for items. Just enjoy those things, and be content, and accept things for what they are. Try not to chase after things. Try not to fight upstream. I mean, to a point. I mean, if it's worth having, yeah, put the effort into it. But ultimately, you look at Elon Musk, and he was the wealthiest man in the world. He has so much wealth, and now his businesses are basically collapsing, and he's becoming a shell of a man. He's devastated, and all his wealth is evaporating. So, really, if you think about it, he put so much work into what he had, and for what? Just to find out that his businesses can't survive, and he's being undercut. And all these other car companies are stomping all over him. So I don't know. He did what he did. He lived his dream. But maybe he just needs to realize that he should be content with things and accept things for what they are. It is what you make of it, and whether it's good or bad, that's just a value judgment. There is no such thing as good or bad. It just, really pertains to the meaning that you give to it. So, anyway, yeah, it's just a vapor. That's all we are, and we're mortal. We do live after this life, but even that life, fades away. Uh, Even the etheric things or whatever, the mysterious other side, it's not permanent. It's not eternal. Uh, Not that I'm aware of. I've seen ghosts disappear, and I've seen people disappear, and buildings disappear. So they roll up like a scroll in your presence, and it's kind of like, this existence that we have, and then you got, all the things that are in this existence, are all temporary. And there's a lot of imperfections about some of the things we do have, but there's a lot of perfections as well. But you know, if you think about it, this whole existence that we have is fleeting, and you don't worry about things too much, and don't put too much effort into things that you can't control, and just be content with what you do have. If you have what you have, if you got food, shelter, and clothing, and you got, let's say, a little bit of entertainment, things to do, be content with that. And if you got income, you're blessed. Uh, if you got a nice body, you're blessed. If you got good looks, you're blessed. But the whole thing is those things fade after a while. I mean, to an extent, you might live another life. You might get reincarnated. You might, have your soul recycled. you know. But the whole thing is there are some things I'm not sure of, but I do understand that we can have the second death, so you got to be careful about that, and then you would cease to exist. And the whole thing is you're just gone in 60 seconds, and there's no evidence of you, no memory of you eventually, and there's no memory of what you've done. And so, if you think about it, there's no sense in trying too hard to have a label placed on yourself, an inflated ego, something that, you're mortal. And, you can become a spirit, yeah, okay, but who's to say that, maybe that spirit will get blotted out? It's not always case typical, but yeah, it can happen. And so anyway, you just enjoy this life, what little life you have, and what little time you have, I should say, and make the best of it, and enjoy what things you do have. And, that's really all you can really do, uh, is appreciate the things you do have, be thankful, and try to understand things. And, I pretty much pierced the veil and I figured it all out, that our lives are temporary and we just pretty much live in a simulation. That's all it is. A pixelated simulation. And, we're more refined and incredibly more refined. But really, ultimately, you think about our minds, our brains, they can generate these images, and, I created myself. Nobody created me. And I became who I am. And my life is a result of all my thoughts and actions up to thus far. So, with that being said, uh, you just realize that you're just tetrahedrons that are animated and can think and reason. But then you figure, what else is there? And you find out that when you enter into the other side, you're just a wandering spirit, a hungry ghost, and he just you find out that there is nothing else, and you're just a wandering spirit, and there is no, and even in this life it's the same way. You really have no goals. You have no, everything's meaningless. You're just chasing after the wind, and it's all vanity, and it's an absurd existence. And you think about how screwed up we are as a human race, how many mistakes we make on a daily basis, and it is what it is. And you just got to be thankful for what we do have and not be so cynical. So anyway, that's all I got to say over and out.